Hello, friends. Okay, let's start with chapter 3 now. I'm going to share the manuscript. There we go. So, chapter 3, Sakamoto Ryoma and his awareness of foreigners. What is the essence of political strife? The Bakumatsu was a period during which political strife unfolded around the center of power, namely Kyoto. Serious domestic agitation, Futto, began after the US-Japan Treaty of Amity and Commerce was signed in June 1858, Ansei 5. The Chief Minister, Ii Naosuke, 1815 to 1860, signed the treaty without obtaining imperial sanction, Chokkyo, and moreover the court was informed in the style of a throwaway report called a Shukutsugi Hosho. There were hints that Emperor Kome Tenno, should abdicate, etc., and the anti-shogunate stance of the court suddenly strengthened. At this time, patriots appeared who revered the emperor, Sonno Shishi, and joining up with the court, they counterattacked the Bakufu. Furthermore, the shogun Iesada was regarded as feeble-minded, Angu, so the problem of the succession of the shogun arose, which added to the political chaos. Thus, the political strife between lords increased in severity, and the supporters of Yoshinobu, namely the three branches of the Tokugawa house, Gosankei, the extended Tokugawa family, Kamon, and the leading Western clans, Saigoku Yuhan, came into sharp conflict with Ii Naosuke's government. With this background, in August of the same year, the court issued a secret order, Bogo no Michoku, to the Mito clan or domain to reform the shogunate. This was the first time that an imperial command, chokure, had been given directly to a clan without going through the bakufu, and this was a great blow to the dignity, igen, of that body. The reaction to this was the Ansei Purge, Ansei no Taigoku, and thorough repression of opposing forces began. Even though Ii Naosuke, who led the purge, was assassinated in the Sakurada Gate incident, Sakurada Mongai no Hen, after this the political strife around the center of power worsened. At the beginning of this book, I stated that this political struggle is generally framed as between the Sonno, Joi, and Kobugattai factions, but these historical phrases do not capture the actual situation. In the first place, Sonno, the Sonno part of the Sonno Joi slogan, is about revering the emperor, while Joi is about driving out barbarians, foreigners, and is an external policy. In other words, Sonno Joi comprises the union of two different concepts and expresses a political slogan. Again, Kobugattai implies the reconciliation, yuwa, of court and shogunate, and is a matter of stabilizing the domestic polity. So, Sonno, Joi, and Kobugattai are not concepts in conflict with each other. In common theory, the Sonno Joi versus Kobugattai has been simplified to Joi versus Kaikoku, expulsionism versus opening the country. Since the subject of Kobugattai is the shogunate, it seems very reasonable, since the shogunate concluded the commercial treaties and opened the country. However, as already stated above, it cannot necessarily be said that the shogunate, Bakufu, was in favor of opening the country. The importance of the foreign perspective when discussing Sakamoto Ryoma. Among the Sonno Joi faction, there was a unique person named Sakamoto Ryoma, 1835 to 1867. He was killed on his birthday, November the 15th, and other prominent members of the faction born in the same year, Tempo 6, 1835, included Hijikata Toshizo, Matsudaira Katamori, Prince Arisugawa no Miya Taruhito, Matsukata Masayoshi, Godai Tomoatsu, Maejima Hisoka, Princess Atsuhime, Komatsu Tatewaki, and others. Sakamoto Ryoma is admired by many Japanese as a dashing hero. They project themselves onto Ryoma in an attempt to get closer to him. The modern image of Ryoma was established in 1962, Showa 37, with the start of the serialization of Shiba Ryotaro's novel Ryoma ga Yuku. Shiba became a popular novelist, and this work is among his representative works and a bestseller which shaped the prototype of the image of Ryoma after the war. After that, countless books about Ryoma appeared, with many showing considerable bias, katayori, in his depiction. The Satsuma Choshu Pact, Sacho Meiyaku, the restoration of imperial rule, Taisei Hokan, and the Omiya incident, Omiya Jiken, were incidents and events in the same period in which Ryoma is depicted as being involved in a central role. But as regards his own ideas, there is hardly any discussion, perhaps due to constraints on historical documents. Ryoma is depicted as a pacifist, the intermediary between Satsuma and Choshu, who devised a policy of overthrowing the Bakufu without having recourse to arms. And if he had not been killed but had lived on into the Meiji period, his business acumen would have seen him leading the Kaientai and soaring high in the world. It would have been Ryoma, not the founder of the Mitsubishi Group, Zaibatsu Iwasaki Yataro, who would have created a great trading company. These are the fanciful ideas which are presented. It is said that Ryoma came into contact with the black ships and his eyes opened to Sonno Joi. Then eventually he was influenced by Katsu Kaishu and became a revere the emperor, open the country, Sonno Kaikoku supporter. But at that time, Japanese all revered the emperor more or less and wanted to expel the barbarians. It is also necessary to examine carefully whether Ryoma's idea of opening the country, in other words, approving the commercial treaties, was simply the same as modern ideas of opening the country. He also formed a trading association called the Kaientai, so it is necessary to clarify Ryoma's foreign perspective, Taigai Ninshiki. In this chapter, Ezo, Hokkaido, and Takeshima are entangled. Takeshima Island is now called Uryongdo by the South Koreans and is disputed territory, but in the Edo era it was called Matsushima. How did Ryoma perceive Russia and Korea and form his view of East Asia, and in what direction did he intend to lead the Kaientai? In addition, touching again on the shogunate's foreign policy in the Bakumatsu period, and referring to the view of East Asia of the people around him, particularly Katsu Kaishu and Kondo Chojiro, we will boldly discuss in order Ryoma's foreign perspective and his view of the world. Katsu Kaishu's wild talk and expulsionist thought. The dramatic events of the Bakumatsu reached boiling point in the Bunkyu period, 1861 to 1864, and it has been portrayed as a conflict between the Sonno Joi expulsionists, who wanted to bring down the Bakufu, and the Kobugatai union of the court and shogunate, who supported its continued existence. However, as we have seen above, in fact, at that time, almost all Japanese were expulsionists who revered the emperor, and to a greater or lesser degree, Notan no Sao Attemo, they affirmed the continued existence of the Bakufu. The difference was with regard to the external crisis and the pressing question of whether the commercial treaties should be approved or not, and what should be the position of the court. At this time, Ryoma left his clan, Dappan, and became a masterless samurai in March 1862, and in the latter half of that year, probably in October or thereabouts, he had a chance meeting, Kaiko, with the shogunate vassal Katsu Kaishu, 1823 to 1899. Katsu's childhood name, Yomyo, and popular nickname Susho was Rintaro. His real name, Honmyo, was Yoshikuni, which was changed after the Meiji restoration to Yasuyoshi. The name Kaishu was from a framed calligraphy of Katsu Kaishu Shōoku, given to him by Sakuma Shozan, who married his younger sister. In this book, I will use his most familiar name, Kaishu. That's image number 10, Katsu Kaishu. Katsu was appointed by Abe Masahiro first as an instructor of the Nagasaki Naval Training School, Nagasaki Kaigun Denshujo, and in 1860, in 1 Ansei 7, he sailed to America in the Kanrin Maru, the ship, the Kanrin Maru. When he was in Nagasaki, he became a friend of Iwase Tadanari, and Iwase from then on called him Rinta in a familiar way. There is no doubt that Katsu was influenced by Iwase, and he certainly inherited some of his thoughts. Ryoma became a pupil of Katsu, Deshi Irishita, and in 1863, Bunkyu 3, as a guest, Kyakubun, he worked at the Kobe Naval Training School, Kobe Kaigun Sorenjo, and assisted with the opening of Katsu's private school, Shijuku Kaisetsu. In other words, it is quite clear that Ryoma agreed with Katsu's foreign and East Asian perspectives and made efforts in the same direction. At the same time, Katsu enjoyed the absolute trust of the shogun Iemochi and the nobleman Kuge named Aniga Koji Kinhisa, 1840 to 1863. Aniga Koji, together with Sanjo Sanetomi, advocated an early breach of the treaties and expulsion of foreigners and took the lead in court politics. But influenced by Katsu's discourse, they changed to acceptance of the commercial treaties. In April 1863, Iemochi accepted Katsu's proposal and personally ordered the founding of the Naval Training School, and Aniga Koji agreed to this. Next, let us explore Katsu's thinking on naval matters. He said to the Echizen clan member Nakane Yukie, "If the court and the shogunate both order it, I will swiftly begin the construction of a navy and will put all my energy into it. In Kobe, I am resolved to create a navy which is the work of once in a century." Zokusaimu Kiji, May 18th. According to this, if the court and the shogunate were to order the creation of a navy together, Katsu was not especially busy, so he could spend time establishing a navy in Kobe, and he earnestly wanted to realize this big once-in-a-century plan. The training school should not be only the bakufu's organization, but it was intended by Katsu to be the unified creation of the court and the bakufu. In March of this year, 1863, Katsu was asked for his opinion by the elder Ogasawara Nagamichi, 1822 to 1891, who in May paid the indemnity of 100,000 British pounds to Britain for the Namamugi incident of 1862, in which the procession of the Satsuma daimyo Shimazu Hisamitsu was crossed by an Englishman on horseback who was killed by the Satsuma retainers. At that time, Katsu was trying to unify Japan, so provoking a violent reaction from Britain, he advocated revocation of the commercial treaty and, if necessary, making war on Britain, even in the knowledge that there was no prospect of defeating such a peerless nation. Katsu's intention was that even if Japan should lose, it was a chance to rouse the nation, and without confrontation between expulsionism, joi, and opening the country, kaikoku, national unity would be achieved. Katsu himself admitted that this was wild talk, and even if his intention was to unify the country, it is proof of his expulsionist thinking. Avoiding reckless expulsionism, mubo na joi wo kaihi suru. At this time, the Choshu clan, complying with the deadline of the order for expulsion of foreigners, began to attack American, French, and Dutch ships at Shimonoseki from May the 10th, 1863, Bunkyu 3. However, there was a retaliatory attack by American and French warships, which caused serious damage. As a response to this defeat, it is very famous that Takasugi Shinsaku, 1839 to 1867, mobilized the lower-class samurai, peasants, and townspeople to create the Kaientai, volunteer militia cavalry. At first, Ryoma was sympathetic to the Choshu clan and feared the occupation of Shimonoseki by foreign powers. He had negotiations on June 29th with the Echizen, which is now in Fukui Prefecture, clan member Murata Ujihisa, 1821 to 1899, and asserted that foreigners should be driven out of Japan and the domestic situation should be calmed down. Specifically, Katsu Kaishu and Okubo Tadahiro should be persuaded to banish low-ranked officials, zokuri, from the bakufu, and Matsudaira Shungaku and Yamauchi Yodo, 1827 to 1872, should be brought to Kyoto to carry out this policy. However, Murata condemned the reckless action of the Choshu clan and rejected this proposal. Ryoma's issue, Ronten, was his fear that part of Japan might be occupied or leased by foreign powers, and he sought to prevent future colonization. But Murata confined himself to finding fault with Choshu, so their negotiations never interlocked. After that, Ryoma changed direction and chose to avoid giving foreigners the chance to take advantage of reckless expulsionism. On the other hand, the court sought to encourage expulsionist acts, and in July sent the court official, Kokuji Yoryudo, named Shijo Takauta as an inspector, Kansatsushi, to Harima and Awaji. That's Awaji Island. With regard to Shijo, Ryoma's plan was to propose that the Muninen Uchiharai Rei edict be avoided, and even if it was unavoidable, Dutch and Chinese ships should be excluded. Even if he was not successful, Ryoma's positive attitude to mediating in affairs of state, Kokuji, should be noted. Regarding the navy, Ryoma wrote that Kobe should be the base of the navy in Kansai area, and by the order of the court, a chief should be selected, Sakamoto Ryoma Kankei Bunsho, August 7th. So he determined that Kobe should be the naval base in West Japan and assumed that by imperial order a chief should be appointed. Also, personnel should be gathered regardless of status, with the running costs to be borne by the lords of Western Japan. This was because even if the shogun Iemochi gave his permission for the opening of the naval training school, in the situation in which expulsionism was pressing, Ryoma realized that it would be difficult to create it under the leadership of the Bakufu, and it was thanks to his shrewd planning, Shinbo, that the naval training school was regarded as a national project and was not monopolized by the Bakufu. In other words, he was not necessarily in conflict with Katsu. Again, Yokoi Shonan, who was engaged by the Echizen clan or domain, expressed a similar conception of the navy, and Ryoma also may have been influenced by his ideas. Katsu Kaishu's long-term expulsionism. Katsu Kaishu no Mirai Joi Shugi. At this point, let us confirm Katsu's external policy, Taigai Seisaku. Fundamentally, it was expulsionist, Joi Shiso. However, given the state of military preparedness at the time, he recognized that it was quite impossible to fight the Western powers on an equal basis, and he rejected reckless expulsionism, Mubo Najoi. He preferred to approve the commercial treaties and from their profits develop a navy, and after preparing sufficient fighting and defense capabilities, put to sea. In other words, he advocated long-term expulsionism, Mirai Joi Shugi, based on imperialist expansion. This was in accordance with the national mediation, Kokuji Shusen, attempted by the Choshu clan or domain in 1861, Bunkyu 1, aiming for harmony between court and shogunate, Kobu Yuwa, in particularly the long-range sea voyage strategy, Kokai Enryakusaku, advocated by the clan member Nagai Uta, 1819 to 1863. This long-range sea voyage strategy rejected the immediate expulsionism, Sokuji Joi, which had involved extreme acts such as murderous attacks on foreigners and their ships, the Bakufu signing commercial treaties without imperial sanction and unilateral revocation of them, and even the refusal to avoid war. Instead of this, Katsu advocated acceptance of the commercial treaties and positive trade with the world in order to build up national power, and only then launching out overseas. This was long-term expulsion, Mirai Joi. This thinking was compatible with the radical line of Kusaka Genzui, 1840 to 1864, who was also a Choshu clan member, but Kusaka was unable to accept the commercial treaties without imperial sanction. He supported long-term expulsion, firmly rejected the revocation of the treaties, and planned for arming Japan through equal commercial treaties. But in the end, he followed immediate expulsion with immediate revocation of the treaties, bombardment of foreign ships, etc. In that process, Nagai fell from grace and was driven to commit ritual suicide, seppuku, or harakiri. The Choshu clan rejected Nagai's long-range sea voyage strategy, Kokai Enryakusaku, and chose expulsionism with revocation of the treaties, Ha-yaku Joi. Katsu's conquer Korea policy, Katsu no Seikanron. Let us return the discussion to Katsu. His outstanding contribution to policy, Keshutsu shita Kensaku, is the emphasis on East Asia and the debate about conquering Korea. On April 27, 1863, Bunkyu 3, he recorded in his diary that he had said the following to Katsura Kogoro, Kido Takayoshi or Kido Koin, and the Tsushima clan member Oshima Tomonojo. Now in the states of Asia, there is nobody who can resist the Europeans. This is because they are small and cannot match the great policy of the European countries. Japan should build warships and appeal to the lords of each Asian country and build alliances to make great navies and study military science, Gakujutsu. If they do not, they will not avoid being crushed. First, we must make an alliance with our neighbor Korea, then with China, Shina, Katsu Kaishu's diary, Kaishu Nikki. According to the above, Katsu stated that there were no states in East Asia which could resist the Western European powers, Seiyo Shokoku. His analysis was that this was because they were closed countries, Sakoku teki, and so could not raise something like a navy, and they were quite unable to match Oyobanai, the imperialist policies of Western European countries. He further stated that if Japan did not propose alliances widely to Asian countries, causing them to build navies quickly and research military science, heigaku, then they would be unable to avoid being trampled upon, violation, jurin. First, Japan should make an alliance with her neighbor, Korea, Rinkoku Chosen, and after that with China, Shinkoku. Katsura and others agreed with this aim. Interpreting this simply and literally, it is impossible to think that the alliance members should be equal in status. Katsu was basing his ideas on the premise that Asian countries would be under the same Japanese umbrella, that they would jointly build navies and confront the Western countries, Europe and the US. And moreover, he wanted Korea to be the first alliance member. Here we can see Katsu's conquer Korea policy in action. It seems that the nobleman Anegakoji Kinhisa, also heard of Katsu's policy. Oshima lamented that the conquer Korea policy would fail if it was not timely, and spoke to Anegakoji, who said that Katsu would probably realize it, and he had spoken about it the other day, and Katsu had revealed his plan to conquer Korea, and he would probably agree to it. Katsu's diary, May the 18th, 1863, Bunkyu 3. Katsu and Anegakoji had suddenly come to an agreement in a short time and had discussed the external policy, Taigai Seiryaku. But when at Nijo Castle in Kyoto, Katsu explained the Seikanron, conquer Korea policy, to the finance commissioners, Kanjo Bugyo, and there was a discussion today. None of the low-ranked officials agreed to it. This is from Katsu's diary. May 15th. There were fierce arguments, daigekiron, in the castle, but nobody agreed to the policy. Let us examine Katsu's remarks a little more closely. In his diary for August the 20th, 1862, Bunkyu 2, he expresses his sense of vigilance with regard to the defense of Tsushima, because Britain and France are aiming to occupy it, but it is originally to prevent Russia's advance southwards in East Asia. So Tsushima must urgently be made an agechi by giving alternative land and asserting direct control of the shogunate over Tsushima, opening a good port for trade and allowing dealings, orai, with Korea and China and building up the navy. Agechi seems to be something to do with control by the Bakufu, yes, shogunate. Later, Katsu was opposed to the 1894-95 war with China and brought up the Asian alliances idea, and in view of his remarks after the Meiji Restoration, it is too early to judge his thought in the Bakumatsu period. The essence of Katsu's emphasis on East Asia in the Bakumatsu period is an Oriental expulsionism as represented by his conquer Korea policy. By invasion, Shinryaku, he wanted to make not only Korea but also China into a tributary country, Chokokoku, cause them to rise suddenly and unify their naval strength to confront the Western powers. Ambitious man. The investigation of Korea, which ended in an illusion. The elder Itakura Katsukiyo, 1823 to 1889, was under the influence of the famous Confucian and Neo-Confucian scholar Jukayome Gakusha and counselor Yamada Hokoku, 1805 to 1877, and as a member of the shogunate was the first to officially adopt the conquer Korea policy. In May 1863, Itakura received the petition of the Tsushima clan or domain to invade Korea, and in June he ordered Katsu to go to Tsushima. In the written document, Katsu was instructed to investigate the situation in Korea, Katsu's diary, June the 5th. So it was in preparation for conquering Korea, Seikan. Katsu's trip to Tsushima was not realized for a long time, but on February the 5th, 1864, Bunkyu 4, then Genji 1, from February the 20th, he was ordered by the shogun Yoshinobu to visit Nagasaki from February to April. In Katsu's diary, he recorded that there was information that a French warship was heading to Shimonoseki to bombard it, and he was to do what he could to prevent this. Katsu set off immediately on February the 13th, but he had to avoid Shimonoseki, and so he landed at Saganoseki in Oita Prefecture and crossed Kyushu by an overland route. He reached Nagasaki at last on February 23rd. Until he left Nagasaki on April 4th, Katsu met with people from many countries, and he managed to have the bombardment of Shimonoseki postponed by 2 months, so he had some success. On March the 3rd, the elder Mizuno Tadakiyo, 1833 to 1884, brought the following orders from the shogun, Taimei. 1. Regarding the investigation of Korea, as an assistant official responsible for warships, Gunkan Bugyo, soon Katsu is expected to go to Tsushima. In spite of rules applied until now, Katsu's requests are to be reviewed flexibly, Rinki o Henni, and complied with. The treatment of Katsu in all things, banji, should not be formal, keishiki, but informal, and simplified, ryakushiki. In accordance with the above, Itean has been informed, so when the business is finished, he, Katsu, should immediately sail to Tsushima and begin thorough investigation of Korea. When the business in Nagasaki is finished, we have ordered that Katsu should immediately cross the sea to Tsushima, but he has also business in Kyoto, so he should postpone his trip to Tsushima and come as soon as possible to Kyoto. The first and second orders above were probably intended to clarify an order from the shogun, Taimei, which had been given to Katsu before he left for Nagasaki, and they were reissued. The first order had been given to Iteyan, which is a Zen temple on Tsushima Island, a shogunate organization where priests were sent from Kyoto, who were charged with supervising negotiations between Korea and the So clan. The first order had been given to Iteyan, and Katsu had been ordered to investigate Korea. Katsu was to have the greatest discretionary powers, Saidaigen no Sairyoken, on the spot, and the ambition, Yashin, to seize a foothold for invasion depending on Korea's attitude can be seen. This was the real purpose of Katsu's going to Nagasaki. So why did Yoshinobu not mention in February that Katsu wants to go to Korea? Probably when the order was given to Katsu, the high court officials, Chosei Sanyo, Shimazu Hisamitsu, 1817 to 1887, Matsudaira Shungoku, 1828 to 1890, and Date Munenari, 1818 to 1892, were all present, and he may have been afraid to mention it. Either way, regarding the negotiations between Choshu and the foreigners, Katsu's presence was probably not essential, but it was Katsu who had continued to advocate the policy of conquering Korea, Seikanron, so he was the only person who could complete that mission. Again, it is certain that the main part of the mission was investigating Korea. However, this order from the shogun was soon cancelled. According to the third order above, after negotiations with several foreign countries had ended, because Katsu had business with the central government, Chuo Seikyoku, he was ordered urgently to return to Kyoto, and his trip to Tsushima was postponed, oasuke to natte shimatta. This was because it was being discussed that the Choshu clan would be ordered with other clans to lead troops to Kyoto, Soppei Jokyo, in the turbulent situation, and external problems with other countries must be avoided in these circumstances. Furthermore, the Tsushima clan member, Oshima Tomonojo, who had been supposed to accompany Katsu on his investigation of Korea, declared to Yamada Hokoku that Katsu was not a pacifist who emphasized Asia as an entity, but an advocate of conquering Korea. Oshima had debated the Korean problem many times with Katsu, and from his Oshima's words and actions, it is clear that Katsu's Seikanron idea was to invade the country of Korea. However, with the fall from grace, Shikkyaku, of Itakura Katsukiyo and Katsu Kaishu, the Bakufu ceased to talk about realizing the invasion of Korea, and the idea was shelved until after the birth of the Meiji government. On this trip to Nagasaki, Katsu was accompanying Sakamoto Ryoma. He had the idea of taking Ryoma with him to Korea and expected him to be a great supporter in his realization of the Seikanron. In the end, the investigation of Korea, Chosen Tansaku, did not happen, but Ryoma encountered Katsu's ideas firsthand, and together they promoted them. This was groundbreaking for Ryoma's later ideas about foreign or external policy, Taigai Seiryaku. It is also important that Ryoma experienced Nagasaki. It is possible that it was not the first time he had been there. As will be stated in more detail later, Ryoma launched the Kaientai in Nagasaki, and it was mainly active there. This was probably because his lively activities with Katsu on this occasion left a strong impression on Ryoma's mind. It is interesting that the inheritance of enlightened, that's Kaimei-teki, and progressive Shimpo-teki nationalistic thought passed from Iwase Tadanari to Katsu, and then beyond the shogunate and its retainers to a masterless samurai, Ronin, which was Ryoma. But this Ronin was not an ordinary person, as subsequent history proved. As already stated, we cannot directly know Ryoma's view of East Asia, but from the fact that he spent a lot of time with Katsu and acted with him, we can conclude that he had the same East Asian expulsionist thinking, and that his external foreign awareness was based on this. Ryoma and Kondo Chojiro. Among Sakamoto Ryoma's achievements must be counted the formation of the Kaientai at Nagasaki in April 1867, KO3. It was in the nature of a trading association, Boeki Kessha, but it could also be called a navy, Kaigun. For this reason, its activities and policy reflected Ryoma's view of East Asia, and it is important to note that its management strategy may have also have secretly influenced the diplomatic policy of the Bakumatsu period. It cannot be ascertained from Ryoma's own utterances and actions, Gendo, but as his ally and as a man deeply trusted by Katsu Kaishu, I want to focus on the Tosha clan member Kondo Chojiro, 1838 to 1866, who was sent as a political envoy to the Echizen clan or domain. Kondo studied together with Ryoma at Katsu's Edo School, Edo Juku, and the Kobe Naval School, Kobe Kaigun Juku, which was also Katsu's school, and he is the most suitable person for understanding Ryoma's awareness of foreign relations, Taigai Ninshiki. Kondo Chojiro was born on March 7, 1838, Tempo 9, in Suidocho, a distance of the castle town of Kochi in Shikoku, now called Kamimachi, as the eldest son of a merchant named Denji, who managed a mochi and sweet shop, Mochi Gashi Sho, named Dairiya. Later on, this was the origin of the shop being named Manjuya Chojiro. Many merchants and craftsmen or artisans lived in Suidocho, and in this district, Kondo studied economics and business know-how. From when he was a child, he had a high motivation to study, and he read a great deal while helping with the family business and studied from his uncle Kadota Kengoro. In 1855, Ansei II, he entered the school of Kawada Shoryo, and after that he studied under Iwasaki Yataro. In 1859, Ansei VI, he became an attendant of the clan's high official, Yui Inai, and studied in Edo, learning Confucianism, Jugaku, from Asaka Gonsai, 1791 to 1861. In the same year, his parents died, and he hurried home, transferred the inheritance to his younger sister, and in the following year, 1860, Maien 1, that is, he returned to study in Edo, learning Western studies, Yogaku from Tezuka Genkai, and gunnery, Hojutsu, from Takashima Shuhan, 1798 to 1866. In 1862, Bunkyu II, Kondo became a pupil of Katsu Kaishu. His reputation for excellence spread far and wide, and one clan after another asked Katsu if he could join them. In 1863, Bunkyu III, the Tosa clan, highly evaluating his scholarly diligence and ability, granted him the special privileges, Tokken, accorded to samurai, Bushi, of using a family name and bearing a sword, Myoji Taito, and he was promoted to samurai status. In January 1863, he went up to Kyoto with Katsu, and in the latter part of June, he entered Katsu's private school in Kobe and began to study navigation, Kokaijutsu. Then in May 1864, Genji I, when the Kobe Naval Training School, Kobe Kaigun Sorenjo, opened, Kondo was admitted as a retainer, Kerai, of Katsu Awa no Kami, with the status of an auditing student, Chokkosei. After this, because of Katsu's fall from grace, Shikkyaku, the Tosa clan members, including Ryoma, who had left the clan or domain, and Kondo had nowhere to go. Katsu asked the Satsuma clan to assist them, and the latter were having difficulty because they lacked seamen for their warships, and so they were absorbed into the Satsuma clan. On February the 1st, 1865, Genji II, becoming Keio first on April 7th, Kondo and the others headed for Kagoshima in the Angyo Maru, and from the 18th they set up home in the Daijoin Bochu Ikoin Temple. At this stage, Ryoma and Kondo became Satsuma clan members and probably also employees, Okakai, or retainers, Kashin, of Komatsu Tatewaki, 1835 to 1870. At this point, an explanation of the Kobe Naval Training School, Kobe Kaigun Sorenjo, is necessary. The common theory is that Ryoma was head of the school, Jukuto, and sometimes he is also described as the head of Katsu's naval school. However, the historian Mr. Matsuura Rei, born 1931, has pointed out that the entrance qualifications for the naval training school were limited to children of vassals, Hatamoto no go Kein no Shite, of Kansai area residents and retainers of families from the Shikoku, Kyushu, and Chugoku areas, and he indicates that an important fact has been overlooked. In other words, Ryoma and others would not have been able to enter the Kobe Naval Training School. Kondo was able to enter as a retainer of Katsu Awa no Kami, but Ryoma not only did not have an official position, Yakushoku, He was not even able to enter the school as a trainee, Renshusei, from Matsuura Rei's Kensho Ryoma Densetsu. It is indeed the case that there are no primary source documents in existence indicating that Ryoma was head of the training school, or that he was admitted to the school in the first place, so the author is inclined to support Mr. Matsuura's hypothesis. At this time, Ryoma was repeatedly shuttling between Edo and Osaka on a bakufu ship. The author also has doubts about this. What were his qualifications for riding on the shogunate's ships? Surely the bakufu would not allow this to a masterless samurai, ronin, with no clan. If he travelled as Katsu's retainer or employee, it would be strange if he were alone and not travelling with Katsu. Even in the case of Ryoma, there are many things which we do not know. These kinds of stories, myths or legends, accompany Ryoma's life, but his reputation is not at all damaged by them. Whether as a masterless samurai or as a member of the Satsuma clan, he passed easily among men of importance, yojin, and it is a fact that he did not leave substantial achievements. It should not be forgotten that many myths have arisen precisely because he was great. From the formation to the dissolution of the Kaientai. At this point, I want to go into more detail about the Kaientai. Many readers may already know about it, but for the sake of organization, please bear with me. The Kaientai was made up of students of Katsu's naval school in Kobe, with Ryoma at the center. It was created in April 1867, KO3, as a trading association, Boeki Kessha, but it also had a naval aspect. Naturally, the students of the Katsu school, starting with Ryoma, had been greatly influenced by Katsu Kaishu's thinking, so the Kaientai also reflected this. That's image number 11, the site of the former Kozone residence, headquarters of the Kaientai in Nagasaki City. Image number 11. At first, it was founded in the Kameyama area of Nagasaki, so it was called Kameyama Shachu, and it was said that the core, or nucleus, Chukaku, of that organization was later reformed, Kaiso, into the Kaientai. However, according to the latest research, this is not correct. The Kameyama Shachu was created on June the 26th, 1865, KO3, when the Satsuma chief retainer, Karo, Komatsu Tatewaki, arrived in Nagasaki. The center of the organization was a group of Tosa clansmen, not Ryoma himself, who had left the clan, Dappanroshi, and they had been brought to Nagasaki by Komatsu to be crew for a ship which he bought, named the Kaimon Maru. Unexpectedly, Kisezushite, as will be stated in detail later, the Choshu clan or domain requested that a ship named the Union be purchased from Britain in the name of the Satsuma clan and be managed by it, and as a result, to distinguish themselves from the Choshu clansmen, the Satsuma group formed the Shachu. The Kameyama was added in the Showa era, and this became the name for posterity. To summarize the truth of the Shacho, it was quite removed from the previously mentioned private navy and trading associations. It was the Satsuma clan under Komatsu Tatewaki with Kondo Chojiro and Takamatsu Taro engaged in operating warships like the Union. Shiramine Shummei, 1847 to 1909, and Mutsumune Mitsu, 1844 to 1897, of Satsuma, studied in the English school of the Nagasaki interpreter Kanori Yuki, 1840 to 1923. However, its core was no more than a group of former Tosa clansmen. Among the members of the Shachu, there were people who were allowed to call themselves Satsuma clan members, but many were simply employees of the Komatsu family, Komatsu Kei-no or Kakai, and they depended on Komatsu. The creation of the Shachu was no more than a chance process connected with the ownership of the Union. It really cannot be said that the Kameyama Shachu existed as we have imagined it until now. It is total nonsense to suggest that there is any connection with the Kaientai as later created by Ryoma. Furthermore, at this stage, the Shachu members had absolutely no relations with Ryoma. The Satsuma clan and those under the protection of Komatsu merely called themselves the Shachu. In the first place, at this time, Ryoma was not in Nagasaki, so the Kameyama Shachu is one of the Ryoma myths. In April 1867, KO3, Goto Chojiro, 1838 to 1897, and Fukuoka Takachika, 1835 to 1919, of the Tosa clan or domain, together set up the organization called the Kaientai. Ryoma, who had left the Tosa clan, was not readmitted, but he was pardoned and appointed to the post of head, Taicho, of the Kaientai. Senior official, Sansei, of the Tosa clan, named Teramura Sazen, 1834 to 1896, who was close to Yamauchi Yodo, 1827 to 1872, who was the 15th head of the Tosa clan, Hanshu. He was also a Bakufu supporter, Shinbakuteki, and knowledgeable about the clan's confidential matters. He regarded the political stance of Goto and others as different and looked on Ryoma coldly. According to his diary, Terumura Sazen Nikki, for October the 14th, 1867, Ryoma met with Goto in Nagasaki and with his permission became head of the Kaientai. In the summer of that year, the Iroha incident, Iroha Jiken, occurred, in which a steamboat called the Iroha Maru, operated by the Kaientai, collided on April 23rd with a warship of the Kishu clan domain, Kishu Han, and sank. Regarding financial compensation for damages, the Tosa domain represented by Ryoma negotiated in Nagasaki with the Kishu domain, and he succeeded in obtaining 70,000 ryo. However, the Tosa clan was completely unaware of this. So the Kaientai did not belong to the Tosa clan and had no connection with it, merely using the clan's name in the negotiations. From Terumura's account, the Kaientai was formed through the plans of Goto and Fukuoka. It seems very likely that they judged it to be within their authority. Yamauchi Yodo and other important domain officials knew nothing about the matter, azkari shinai, and they developed the organization independently. In order to place Ryoma at the head of the organization, they managed to secure a pardon for his leaving the clan, Dappan, but the truth is that they were not able to restore him to clan membership, fukuseki. Now I would like to investigate the nature of the Kaientai based on the terms and conditions, contracts of membership. Miyaji Saichiro, Ryoma no Tegami, Letters of Ryoma. Qualifications for entry included persons who have left the Tosa clan or other clans and those with a passion for overseas, kaigai ni kokorozashi ga aru mono. The three qualifications appear to be equal and in parallel, but in that case, if a person had passion for overseas, then anybody could be admitted, and it was not necessary for him to have left a clan. In other words, leaving a clan, dappan, was a necessary condition, hissu joken, and a passion for overseas was merely an addition. So the Kaientai was an auxiliary organization, Gaikaku Dantai, of the Tosa clan, but its members were all masterless samurai, ronin, who had left their clan. It was a strange situation. If it were considered as Goto and Fukuoka's private organization, it was a lineup which would not cause embarrassment to Tosa or other domains. The purpose of establishing the Kaientai was transportation, making profits, pioneering, and speculation, with the main purpose of supporting the Tosa domain. The commercial activities and pioneering works which Ryoma was intending were broadly recognized. In addition, as it had supported the war between the Bakufu and the Shoshu domain, it was expected that it would support the Tosa domain as a naval force. Also, internal matters of the organization are to be left to the head, Taicho. Disobedience of orders will not be allowed. If a member of the association, Taiin, without discipline should act in a way which causes problems, the head shall have power over whether he lives or dies, and any punishment will be permitted. Ryoma had the power of life and death, sei satsuyo datsuken, over the members of the Kaientai, and wielded great power as head of the Kaientai. Next, the fields of study which the members of the association must learn are politics and economics, military matters, navigation, warship drills, foreign languages, etc., according to the choices of members. Then they must encourage each other and certainly not neglect their studies. The members of the Kaientai were required to study law, navigation, military matters, languages, etc., in accordance with their individual ambitions. They should diligently apply themselves to their studies, not be idle, and work hard. In other words, the Kaientai was also an educational organization. Furthermore, mainly regarding management expenses, there is the following section. The funds for members' activities should be covered by the profits from their own businesses. They should divide the profits between themselves, and individuals should not misappropriate funds. If the management funds are lacking to the point where poverty is an obstacle to learning, the head can apply to the inspector, Shukikan, for funds. This is important for determining kitei-suru, the character of the Kaientai. In principle, expenses were to be paid for by individual members, jimai, and they had to make profits. On the other hand, there was no duty to pay money to the Tosa domain. However, when losses were sustained, there was an agreement that on Ryoma's suggestion, the on-site Tosa official called the inspector, Shukikan, could compensate them. The inspector was Goto Chojiro, so it was probably easy to obtain compensation. Thus, the Kaientai was not so much an auxiliary or external organization of the Tosa clan or domain, and more like the private organization of the inspector who had delegated authority to the head of the Kaientai. The meaning of Terumura Sazen's statement that the Tosa clan had nothing to do with the matter, Tosa Hanwa Azkari Shirazu, now becomes clear. The Kaientai was a semi-public and semi-private organization, and it cannot be denied that it was formed by Goto and Fukuoka for their own convenience. Apart from shipping, the Kaientai was engaged in many other activities, including the publication of an elementary English book titled Wae Tsuin Iroha Binran, and other publications and cultural activities. Then, in July 1867, KO3, the Rikuentai land force, was formed by Nakaoka Shintaro, 1838 to 1867, and together with the Kaientai, they were called the Shotentai. However, the Kaientai was faced with one problem after another. As already mentioned, in April 1867, the Irohamaru incident occurred, and the vessel sank in the Seto Inland Sea after colliding with the Kishu clan's ship. Based on international law, universal public law, Bankoku Koho, Ryoma overwhelmed the Kishu clan in negotiations and secured 70,000 ryo as compensation. The relief was short-lived, for on November 15th, at Omiya in Kyoto, Ryoma and Nakaoka were murdered by the Mimawari Gumi, a special police force created by the shogunate to restore public order to Kyoto. After that, the Kaientai lost its unifying force, Kyushin-ryoku, and began to break up. Nagaoka Kenkichi, 1834 to 1872, was appointed head, but in April 1868, KO4, the Kaientai was disbanded by the Tosa clan. Goto Chojiro continued as the Tosa Shokai, Tosa Trading Company, and further, Iwasaki Yataro developed the Tsukumo Shokai, Mitsubishi Shokai, Yubin Kisen Mitsubishi Kaisha, Mitsubishi Mail Steamer Company, which later became the Nippon Yusen Kabushiki Gaisha, Mitsubishi Shoji, etc. It really was a diversion towards commercialism, but to what extent was the thinking entrusted to Ryoma's Kaientai later realized? Okay, that's about halfway through this chapter, so I will stop here and resume in a new video. Thank you. See you shortly.